So what have I been reading the last several weeks? I have back plague at the moment, so I've definitely got more time to read sitting at home. So hopefully I'll finish a few more books. But the last few weeks have been sort of up and down in terms of reading efficiency. I've read page count. It's not been there's been no reading, but there's definitely been a more uneven sort of amount of reading. I've needed to read different things, including more technical writing and non-fiction. But I've finished 3 things in the last 3 or 4 weeks and made progress on 3 others. So I'll talk about that now. And I'd love to hear what you've been reading and get some recommendations. First, I did a review of these two Christmas books. The Nutcracker by Eta Hoffman, a really gorgeous illustrated edition, illustrated by Sana Anuka. And this is, well, Christmas books by Dickens. I read A Christmas Carol. They're both novellas in terms of modern parlance. And they're both great. I think A Christmas Carol is genuinely a great novella, is genuinely a great story. The Nutcracker and the Mouse King by Hoffman is really fun. It has some really clever, interesting bits. It's not all-time great. When I say, we use great in such a loose way, don't we? It's not a great novella, but it's a great novella. It's good fun. And so I liked them both. You can watch the review for more thoughts on that. I've also finished book 1 of the Bromeliad by Terry Pratchett. Truckers. They want a truck. And in the second one, called Diggers, they want a digger. This is the story about these little gnomes who are a few inches high, who are in a department store, an old-fashioned English department store, and for various reasons end up thinking maybe we've got to get out. And it's 1990, I think, so relatively early Pratchett. It's very good. It's better than I maybe would have immediately expected. But then again, it's the period that Guards comes out. He's hit his stride really by that point. And it's, I think it's his second children's book. My kids really enjoyed listening to it. We'll continue on. We all 5 of us read it together as a family. We'll continue on with Diggers in the near future, and I'm sure we'll enjoy that too. The other book I've read with my kids, which is my reading to get them to go to sleep book, if they've not gone to sleep already and it's getting late, is The Railway Children by E. Nesbit, who I recently did a review of her book 5 Children and It. Railway Children is not a fantasy, it's a kind of sentimental family drama, really. And it's definitely a lot more, at points, emotionally intense than the Samiad trilogy. It's still a kid's book, it's still a family book, but there's a lot to it, and I'm really enjoying it. We've got 2 chapters left. After that, we'll probably switch back to the Samiad and finish that with the Tale of the Amulet, the story of the Amulet. I suppose it may well be that I want to get the other trilogy, big famous trilogy by her, the Treasure Seeker trilogy, the Bastable trilogy, because the boys really enjoy Nesbit's writing, and I do too, and it's a nice thing to do together. The 2 longer novels I have been reading: Red Mars by Kim Stanley Robinson, which my son accurately said, "Oh, is that about going into space?" We've been stargazing together, so I think he possibly got the idea from the cover. But yeah, the Red Mars, I am over 2/3 of the way through. I paused this to read the Christmas books, otherwise I would have finished it probably a week or 2 ago. And yeah, this is really interesting. I'll do a full review for this. I think there are things I'd want to offer as kind of caveats or limited criticisms, because it's not the single best book I've read this year. It's really good, but it's not the single best book I've read, and there are reasons for that. But I think what I really enjoy about it is it's hard sci-fi. It's very much a how would settling Mars actually work. There's lots of stuff on the science of it for people who like that, people who like The Martian, for instance. But there's also a very strong character thread, which is basically each part. There are 7 or 8 parts. There are 8 parts. Each part, or nearly every part, is narrated from the perspective of a different character, and it is a limited third person. So think Joe Abercrombie or someone like that. And it's really interesting comparison. The comparison to Abercrombie, who I've read this year, definitely came up in my mind, because they're very different, whilst being similar in one way. And the similarity is they both really inhabit characters. The difference is that I think Abercrombie has a kind of stylish and fun and pacey way of doing that, whereas Robinson is much more psychologically real. I think Abercrombie, I'd say, is psychologically real, but there's something here just about the depth to which these characters are inhabited and textured, which is much less, beautiful sci-fi fantasy film, much more Terrence Malick or something else, slightly art housey. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I will probably finish that this week, I'd expect, at the current pace. I've also started, and this is very boring, Annals of the Witch World. In fact, I've started the first novella or short novel within it, Witch World, by Andre Norton, very important Appendix N author for Dungeons and Dragons. Annals is the first trilogy, which is Witch World, Web of the Witch World, and Year of the Unicorn. There is a second trilogy, and I'm only a few chapters in. I've also just thrown it on the floor. I'm only a few chapters in, but I've really enjoyed it so far. It's from the 60s, and it feels older. It feels pulpier than, say, Moorcock, who I've read recently. Moorcock trades on pulp tropes, but is actively being innovative in terms of his style. Whereas Norton, I think, is very identifiably a sort of an early sci-fi fantasy writer in that way. She doesn't feel like a member of the new wave of sci-fi or fantasy that kind of starts in the 60s. You know, big names like Moorcock, Zelazny, people like that. She doesn't feel at all like that. But it is really interesting, and I've enjoyed it so far. I mean, in the end, it's also, they're short novels. I kind of think, yeah, I might even finish that this week, the first one of those. And if I do, I'll probably be able to form a bigger opinion, a more deep opinion. The only new book, I think, fiction-wise, that I've got recently was The Nutcracker. I might get the other books illustrated by Sana Aluka, The Snow Queen and The Fir Tree by Hans Christian Andersen, just because they're nice and I like matching sets of things for the kids. But yeah, they're kind of lovely linen cloth covers. But that's the only new fiction book I've got recently, really. I may well look at buying a few fiction books in the new year, once I know kind of more, once I'm thinking about what I'm reading in the new year. I'll do a plan or discussion about what I think I'll read in the new year or next year soon. But anyway, what have you been reading? Tell me in the comments, what are your favourite books of the last month or so? What would you recommend to me? What did you hate? Tell me in the comments. Till next time.